Have you ever felt like your story wasn't worth telling? That your struggle, your illness, your healing wasn't really big enough to really matter? Or maybe it was too big, too messy, or too painful to actually put in words. But what if I told you that the story you're afraid to tell might be the one that actually sets you free? Y'all, today's guest has helped over 150 people transform that exact fear, y'all, the real fear, into best-selling books, full-time brands, and personal liberation. Because when you write your healing story, you don't just inspire others, you finally start to believe it yourself. But before we dive into this episode, y'all already know what time it is. With me, y'all.
Welcome to the Empowered Place, Empowered Lives podcast.
Y'all, welcome back to another episode of the Empowered Place, Empowered Lives podcast. It's your healthy habits and lifestyle coach, Jovonnie, founder and visionary of 4 Vibrations, but my M to the 3rd degree healing empowerment formula, mindset, mindful eating, and movement. And today's guest, she is going to help you do so many different things that some of us really don't realize in regards to our healing journey. And that's write your wellness story. Coming into the Good Vibe studio is Danielle Hutchinson. What up, Danielle?
Hey, I'm so excited to be here. I love your energy. Like, right before we started recording, everybody, she was like laughing and shrieking and just like super excited. And I feel the same way. I mean, I've been really excited to come on today. So thanks for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure, y'all. Danielle is the Chief Creator Officer at Authors on a Mission and a creative powerhouse who's helped hundreds of people turn their pain into purpose. And y'all, we already talked enough of that on the Empowered Place, Empowered Lives podcast, but she also lives with narcolepsy and shows up every single day to help other people reclaim their voice. So Danielle, before we really get into the power of storytelling, can you give us just some insights on how it was like to navigate narcolepsy before you got clarity and start going with your lifestyle changes?
Yeah, so the weird thing is I grew up thinking I'm just always tired, right? You know, like I didn't get enough sleep, I didn't get enough REM cycle, whatever it might be. But then one day my boyfriend looks at me, he's like, you should not be tired right now. You should totally go get that checked out. And I'm glad I did because, you know, after going through a whole sleep study, it was very interesting actually, and kind of a little mini vacation there, going to the hospital and just getting the whole day to sleep. It was wonderful. But then they, of course, they said I was blatantly narcoleptic. Then they got on the medicine, and ever since I've been able to sort of adapt to how my body is telling me to work and go about my life. So it's just a relief to have that diagnosis. You know what I mean? I'm sure you are in that same scenario too.
Yeah, I love the fact that you said I was always tired. So many people don't equate the I am always tired as something that needs to be checked out, something that needs to be discovered, something that needs to be investigated. It's more so, oh, I just need more rest, or that's just how my life is. I've just always been tired. You normalize being tired. What would you say to yourself prior to? What would you have said to your younger self, knowing what you were actually going through and being diagnosed with narcolepsy? Like, what would you tell other people who might be saying, I'm always tired, like to not normalize that?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing to keep in mind is it's not laziness necessarily. I thought, why am I so lazy? Why am I not accomplishing enough throughout the day? So just being mindful, you know what, if you think something's wrong, just go see somebody and check it out, because chances are there's probably something going on. If there's a little voice in your head telling you this isn't normal, you just go get some help. There's no shame in it either. I think that's an important thing to think about too.
I love that you said no shame. Don't put shame in it. And then also don't call yourself lazy. Like, maybe it's really not laziness. Maybe something is really happening in your body, and your body's giving you these messages and these signals to say, hey, something's going on in here. Come check it out. And then I also like that you phrased it in regards to going to your sleep study as like a vacation, because you just get to go here and sleep guilt-free to really just figure out what's happening. And I had another guest on the podcast who was going through like potentially sleep apnea, and like going in and putting the, the equipment on. It was like, you know what, I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to get up and just start walking. I'm going to just go change my life. Like I don't even want to sit through this whole, scenario to even know what's happening. What did it look like for you to actually start making changes after that sleep study?
Yeah, well, it kind of transformed how I had to approach my work as a ghostwriter and editor. I threw everything out that I thought I knew about productivity. I had to learn to work with my body instead of against it. I think that mainly I learned that energy is precious. It's a resource, right? So I have to be strategic when I use it. I have to identify my peak mental clarity windows and schedule my most demanding projects around those times. I had to buffer time into every deadline to make sure that, in case my brain's just not cooperating, I have to give myself that rest. And instead of fighting the fog, I have to embrace it. If I'm feeling tired, I use a chair that I can literally kind of lean back in, take my little nap, get right back to it when I have more energy. So yeah, just being consistent with it, practicing good sleep hygiene, which I never even knew was a thing before. It just really improved my creative output rather than hindering it. So it's about embracing it and learning to use it as a tool. So
I love that. And you hit a lot of different things. One, energy is precious. Man, that's a beautiful one right there, because so many times people they don't value energy as much as they should. Or it's the energy when I'm around a whole bunch of other people, or it's just the energy I don't want to do something. It's more of a negative type of concept when you think about energy, or you're just motivated to do something. But just realizing that energy is precious, it's a gem within itself. But that buffering time, like, talk to the people who are just not great with time management. What does buffering time even looks like when you're trying to approach a balanced lifestyle?
So I always like to use the phrase under promise, over deliver. So I would tell a client, you know what, it's going to take 7 to 10 days to turn this milestone back to you. But then maybe I get it done in 5 days. Maybe it is 10 days, but I have that window where I can either surprise the client, give a little bit more satisfaction by getting it done early, or if things just aren't working, if I'm too overwhelmed, if I'm too tired, then I can work around that. And I think as a freelancer, I think this is something that anybody could learn from, because you got to give yourself those windows and that flexibility.
I like it. And we're still diving into the lifestyle changes, which is so dope. And you see me geeking out. But I think it's so valuable because so many people don't realize the habits that they have in their life can be changed and shifted to better support them and improve their quality of life. And so when you talked about the sleep hygiene, what is sleep hygiene to Danielle, and how did she create a better sleep hygiene for herself?
Yeah, so there's plenty of studies out there that could tell you exact statistics and best practices for it. But what I learned about it, which I grew up just thinking, okay, time to go to sleep. I'm going to lay down and get under the blankets. That's about it, right? But sleep hygiene means more so working with what your body needs to get a restful night's sleep, ensuring that you have the TV off, that there's maybe you have some background music or rain sounds or something like that. Ensuring that you go through your routine, wash your face, brush your teeth, make sure you're comfortable, pretty much eliminating anything that's going to make you get back out of bed before you get into that bed. And doing it consistently too is just a great way to make sure you're having that restful night's sleep and making the most of the hours that you're resting. It's not just something we do, it's something our bodies need. So
I like that. Not just what we do, but what our bodies need. And really talking about those distractions or the things that we put in place that really don't help us get the quality of sleep that we need. So I thank you for kind of going through some of those things, because we don't realize that. I know there's some people who go to sleep with the TV on. How does that help you with having a good sleep hygiene quality? Some people might just get in the bed. Maybe it's taking a long bath with essential oils that help your body go ahead and start relaxing. So when you get in the bed, your mind's not going all over the place and you're still trying to unwind from the day and figure out how to prepare for tomorrow, when it's not necessarily a part of that routine for your sleep hygiene. So thank you for that. So what about your food? did you have any type of changes when it came to how you were approaching nutrition after your diagnosis?
Yeah, so I don't necessarily follow an exact diet. I don't necessarily find it actually influences one way or the other. But I mean, of course, just in a general aspect, always eating healthy is something that it does benefit you, right? And making sure that you do eat certain foods that boost that energy is definitely useful too. I have a bad habit of sometimes picking up a Celsius or having an extra cup of coffee. I wouldn't recommend that to anybody, but yeah, definitely it's important. But going back into the sleep hygiene part in terms of food, it is actually proven that you shouldn't be eating right before bed either. If we give yourself 2 hours to digest, it definitely aids to, getting a better night's sleep too. So I'd say in terms of diet, just do what works for you.
So have you seen any type of different foods or foods that help you like while taking your medication to better manage your conditions? Like for anybody that might also have experience with narcolepsy, like are there any tips that you would give them around how you're navigating food and medication?
Yeah, thank you for that. Actually, you're right, because you can't just take a medicine on an empty stomach. You need to make sure that you're eating right before it. I find if I take the medicine first thing in the morning, I get a little bit too much energy, or I find myself just like my brain's on robot mode, right? So definitely having, I usually go for like crackers or something just with a lot of starch and carbs in it. Kind of helps to soak up the medicine a little bit. That's what I usually go for, and that's what I would recommend to anybody. Make sure you eat before medicine. I think that goes to anybody with any chronic illness, right? You don't want to mess it up.
Agreed. Do you ever feel like there's some like narratives around healthier eating, the shoulds, the shouldn't, that keep people kind of stuck and not allowing themselves to actually truly embrace like the lifestyle changes that help them be more productive?
Oh yeah, I mean, what I would say, which I think you probably agree with, is sometimes people hold themselves too rigidly to a certain diet. You end up craving certain foods that you're telling yourself, no, 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 you can't get pizza today because that's not healthy. That's too oily. That's too just generally unhealthy. So you got to give yourself those breaks, and even if it's just a little taste now and then, it's not going to hurt you at all. I think that's a pretty overarching that we all experience.
Agree. And I think for me, it's that whole mindful eating concept, Danielle, because if you are having a craving for something, like satisfy it, but don't overindulge, like if you want the donut, go get the donut, but don't order a whole dozen and eat the whole dozen, like really be mindful about what your body is telling you. And then understanding, is it a craving? Or am I emotionally eating? Is there some emotion that's settling with me, or some type of external factor that's happening and it's making me crave, I just want to go eat. I just want to eat. I just want to eat because there's something else happening that I necessarily might not have control over, or that I'm still trying to process. Unknowingly, I'm using food as a mechanism for that. And so I thank you for kind of hitting on that aspect. And for those of you that are watching, in the show notes, I have a plant-based alternative guide that you can actually get access to. And it talks about the different benefits of, your grains, your fruits, your vegetables, but it also gives you recipes, smoothie, juices, all the different things. So if you're someone who says, I need to eat better, I want to eat better with a purpose and know what I'm getting from these said foods, then go ahead and get that plant-based alternative guide in the show notes. So let's get into it, Danielle. You've written or edited over 150 books. What makes a wellness story truly resonate for people who are navigating chronic conditions like endometriosis, adenomyosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, fibroids, any chronic condition with their journey?
Yeah, so if you have an illness, you don't have to see it as a weakness, right? It could be something that not only helps others if you were to put it into the form of a book, but it could also benefit yourself because you can build a brand off of it. You can have some extra income by having a book out there. And what adds a bonus to that is your lived experience with any chronic illness can give you an authentic take on what healthy people simply don't have. That expertise is valuable because you're living with it. So when you write about your condition, it creates a community, a connection with others facing the same challenges that you might have. And like I mentioned before, it's a great way to have some extra income. The beauty is that you can work from anywhere on your own schedule, manage it around your condition. And that's kind of perfect because if your symptoms are unpredictable, you got to balance whatever your body's telling you to do, which is what I mentioned before in terms of balancing my narcolepsy. But the more you build an audience around your wellness journey, it can create, you can create a plan from it, like I mentioned before, books, courses, speaking opportunities, content creation. It could be an advantage because no one has your exact perspective. You can create income through all those different things. And when you're sharing your journey authentically, you can become a thought leader, really, in whatever the chronic illness space is that you're dealing with. It's a great way to guide others and use yourself as an example and a powerhouse, really. So it's all those different benefits rolled into one.
I actually love that. I took some notes down and I love all the different components that you kind of layered in regards to it. But talk to the people who say, you know what, I don't really know if I'm a person who can write a book, or I don't really feel like I have a story to tell. How do you help people break through that mindset?
Yeah, well, I think everybody does have a story to tell, especially if you have a condition like this. There's so many others out there who are experiencing the same thing. So what I would say is maybe write down a story that you tell yourself about your body's health, right? If it's full of I can'ts and I can't do this, I can't do that, then just rewrite it and focus on more what's possible, right? Just reframe your own narrative. And then from there, you can pull a story and get that onto the paper. And I guess you can kind of edit your own tale the way that you want to spin it. It's all in your control, is what I'm trying to say. So it's a great way to build your own mentality up by writing about it. So
I like it. I love what you said, right? Based on what's possible. And I think a lot of times people have that inner voice that tells them what's not possible, what's not happening for them, or they become a victim of their circumstances. And then it's just that victim voice that constantly continues to overtrude any other aspect, or like you said earlier, a unique perspective on what's actually happening within your own personal story. So how do you help people find the message in their mess without romanticizing their pain, just being that victim?
Yeah, so it's a mindset shift. You need to sort of work around that. But what you can do is use that sort of victim mentality within the book too. That's kind of a misconception people might have about wellness books. You don't have to tell a perfect story about I have this condition and my life is great. You can talk about those downsides and that victim part of it, but frame it how you're overcoming it and focus on the progress, not perfection. I've had a lot of clients who maintain their changes, the changes that they're going through, but find simple, sustainable practices that fit into their actual lives. And it's not an idealized version of it, but just everyday life. So that's kind of how I would frame it. Focus on what they're dealing with, and that's where the strength comes from. If that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. I love that. Use your pain to illustrate progress, not perfection. Exactly. And you heard me say to illustrate. Come on, I got the author on the live, so I'm making sure I use those terms. But Danielle, what is a myth about writing that holds people back from even starting to pursue this type of journey?
I mean, there's a ton of them out there. I'd say a lot of people think, I don't have the time to write. I'm not a good writer. Nothing's ever going to come of it. And of course, I can start a book but never finish it. So I would say to debunk all of that, that's what working with somebody like me really solves, because by working with the ghostwriter, well, there you go. Your voice and your story can still be heard. But of course, I have the experience and knowledge to see what works best in the market, what makes a good book sell well, how to target a specific audience. So by working with me, you're getting that for sure. But then you're also still have that level of not credibility. Making sure you stay on track by working with somebody too, right? Some people might fall off a project if they're just working solo, but by having somebody on your team like me, then there you go. I'm there to send you emails, check in on you, and it's more of a team effort. And therefore, well, there's nothing to worry about. You've got somebody on your team to help you get that story told.
I like it. So there's two ways I want to take this. So I'm gonna start with the shorter version. So you talked about time. People saying, "Oh, I don't have time to write a book," and I feel like I've seen so many different I'm gonna say ads from people who promote, oh, I can help you, write your book or launch your book in a certain amount of days or times using the power of AI, or you can write your own book just using AI tools. So I get the whole time factor. How long does it typically take working with, someone like you or your team to actually start and finish the process of working on a book?
So it does, of course, vary depending on the project itself and the level of involvement that you would like from the team. I have one client whose book has been finished since last summer, but he's just taking a long time to review it and get those final touches and giving us the go-ahead to start on the editing and formatting and book covers. So it's really a matter of your own schedule. I've also had a client who I was able to finish his book within a week because he just, I know, I see your face. He calls me up. I'm at the grocery store in the cheese aisle, and I just get this random phone call. He's like, I found your number. I need a book written by next Sunday. I'm like, today's Sunday. So you want 7 days. But you know what? With the right flexibility and time schedule and price point, we were able to get it done within that week for him. So yeah, I mean, realistically speaking, on average, I would say about 6 months, just because, you do have those variables of, the back and forth collaboration. There might be some editing going on between chapter to chapter, but when the manuscript is finished, then the bulk of the work is pretty much done, and then it just goes on to the other steps, which I would say that's where a majority of it comes into play, because it goes into other people's hands and there's a little bit more back and forth there. But yes, about 6 months is the short answer.
I like it. So a week for one person, over a year for another person, but on average about 6 months to write a book. So let's do something, Danielle. Let's try this out. So I'm coming to you and I want to write my first book. I'm like, Danielle, I'm a healthy habits and lifestyle coach. Okay. And I have really turned my pain into power. I changed my lifestyle and I saw that it allowed me to reduce so many different symptoms I was having based on my endometriosis, adenomyosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and fibroids. And I want to write a book because I want to get on more stages. I want to be this dynamic speaker. And I heard speakers have books. They have something to sell at the back of the room or on the table. Or they say, if you have this book will make you passive income because you'll always have a book out there. And that's how people can better know you and your philosophy. So I'm like, Danielle, help me out. I told I need a book. Help me, walk me through the process, or kind of give me the clarity or structure or what this would look like for a new client that came to you like me for this.
Well, I have to say, you are so much fun, because I get a lot of questions like that, but never so like, okay, so what would you do for me? Like, that's really fun that you asked that. So, the first step would be I'd have to get to know you. I'd be like, okay, let's hop on a Zoom call, let's chat, let's, get a cup of coffee together and just get to know each other. And, based on that, that's how I would get to know a little bit more about, first off, what you're dealing with and what your main message is. And once you have that main message out there, that's when we figure out, okay, what's your framework going to be? What are you pitching to people? What are people going to get out of what you have to say? So for you, of course, it's empowerment and, working through different conditions. Based on that, that's how we structure the book, and we do strategically so that everything in the book can be repurposed for other content. So maybe chapter 1 is on how you got diagnosed, for example, right? But then we pull material from that, we put it on another document, keep it handy so that later on we can use that material for your social media posts, for your TED Talk, for your YouTube videos and your shorts. And based on that, by the time the book is complete, you have just like a whole Bible of material that you can repurpose here and repurpose there, and it's good to go. And you mentioned AI before. That's a great thing to do too, is to take all that content and throw it into a program so that you can just kind of spit out the social media posts rapidly and throw them out there. So that's how it would all begin. And we just sort of go week by week until the book is ready to go.
So I love that. So thank you for walking me through the journey. You'll have the coffee. I have the juice because I just finished watermelon juice. But it was something that you talked about, that first step, get to know you and really carve out that main message. And we were talking earlier, we talked about how you sometimes use Zoom for therapy to process the ideas. And so I really wanted to hit on that, because sometimes people think that they can just send an email or submit a Google form and tell you a concept and then just expect a ghostwriter or some type of, expertise in that area to just make something kind of come to life. What do you feel like the main purpose of why people choose a ghostwriter, and why people typically say, like, oh, well, then that's not really your story if you're having somebody else write your story?
I think you pretty much just answered the question in that little spiel you gave there, because to debunk that myth, it is your story because you're the one telling it, right? But the more we get to know each other, the more I'm also able to capture your voice. For you, I'm noticing you have a certain like passion behind your words and emphasis, and you're always super excited about things. So I would try to use that in the book itself, so it sounds like you. I don't know how exactly you'd put in like the woohoos in the book, but I feel like that's something you would want to add in somehow. So yeah, it's getting to know somebody, and the more you get on those Zoom calls, then that's how I can better take your voice. And you did, at one point I wanted to go back to, you mentioned that people do see us therapeutic, and that's absolutely true. A lot of people, we get on these weekly Zoom calls for an hour, sometimes more than once a week. And I literally have this one client who he'll lean back his chair and be looking at the ceiling as just telling me about his experiences. I'm like, this is a therapist's office at this point. But, I record the meeting, I look back at the notes, and I'm able to turn that into a chapter. So it's a great experience all around for your wellness and for getting the message out there.
I like that. I didn't even realize, and I'm glad you brought that into the conversation of having like a weekly call to kind of touch bases in that. And I think for me, because they always say storytelling, is a big thing. That's the way you really connect and you can convert your message to people, besides just educating and giving a lot of value. And I think that's been like my biggest point, is I'm empowering, I educate, I let you know my why and what's helped for other people. But I don't do a lot when it comes to like storytelling, and don't know all of the different skills or the tools in regards to that. But it was something that you said, and it was really talking about, one, I would say, what are some of the tips that people can utilize when they're thinking about storytelling, to even first think, okay, do I even want to create a book from this? Like, what are some storytelling tips?
Well, one big thing, which I sort of mentioned before, is that you don't want to just tell the good stories. You want to tell the bad stories also. Any nonfiction book, nobody wants to learn from you if your road was paved by gold, right? Everyone's encountering problems. They want to know that you also went through them. So share the good stories and the bad stories. And that being said, you don't want to get sidetracked. Make sure you have a clear beginning, middle, end, because I also have clients who will ramble on about their second cousin's trip to the pizza shop. And then it's like, okay, but what was the point of that story? I don't know. So yeah, staying on target with it, and making sure that every story you include is directly related to whatever the topic is that you're getting across in that particular chapter, making it relevant, making it serve a purpose. And that's pretty much the basics, I would say.
I love it, because sometimes, and I know I'm gonna speak for myself, I can make storytelling more complicated. And people just be like, well, just tell me where you are. Like, start with the location, make people feel like where you are. And it's so easy for me to just tell you a event that occurred, but I will get caught up in the details, or I will get caught up in what I thought was most important to know. And people were like, they didn't care about that part. They needed to know about this part because that resonates. And I think that's the power of having a ghostwriter, or have someone who's really good with storytelling help you carve out the real details and the direct correlation of something that's going to be valuable for other people, not just what you find valuable within your own story. So I'm really grateful that you broke that down. What would you think would be like the biggest mistake new wellness authors make, and how do you propose that they avoid it?
Well, before I answer that, I just wanted to make a good point about what you just said is, you might want to tell all the details of a story, and you actually can, depending on the style. If you're thinking more of a narrative for your book, maybe a memoir, then you can absolutely talk about the weather outside and the pattern on your curtains. But then, of course, if you're focusing more on the framework, direct actionable points, then that's when you don't want the more concise, direct stories that I was talking about. So what you said absolutely is fair game too. And now you asked if what were some of the mistakes that wellness authors make? Was that the question?
The biggest mistake new wellness authors make.
Yes. I would say, you know what? It's interesting because when it comes to the wellness space, there's a choice you have to make. Do you want your audience to be anybody out there, or do you want to focus it only on your specific chronic condition? So there's a question to first answer yourself. Am I writing for a big group or a small group? And I think that's where the biggest mistake comes from, is targeting your work on that particular audience. Do you want to only focus on narcoleptic people conditions, right? Or do you want to make your story more wellness based? So it's a careful balance there. It's directing it to that audience and making sure you hit that mark.
So the way to avoid it is to know specifically who you're trying to talk to when you are approaching your story. Yes. Okay. And that makes sense, because I always heard people say, if you're trying to talk to everyone, you're talking to no one.
Yes.
But then I've also had people, when I said, okay, so I'm niched down, I'm talking about the specific chronic conditions I have experience with and have helped other people. But of course, my framework, my coaching, my services, it helps other people with other conditions, because it's all rooted in an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. So inflammation is a root cause or a chronic, issue for so many people, despite the actual, diagnosis. So it helps. And people are like, well, don't count them out. And it was like, well, I'm not counting them out. If they find a vibe in me that supports them, then they can still take what I'm utilizing to get the proper support. So I really love the fact that you echoed that sentiment, like niche down and know who that audience is you're talking to, versus talking to any and everybody because you want to help any and everybody. And I think the mindset shift in that, Danielle, is the fact that you're going to help the people that you're meant to help anyway. So don't try to get so caught up in trying to talk to all the people. Just talk your talk, and the right energy that is precious is going to be attracted to you based on what it is that people need from you. So I just really appreciate you kind of breaking that down, using me for an example. But let's get into like the writing part of it. You talked about how writing is a process of what the body can't necessarily say out loud. And I think that's a big thing, because so many people underestimate the power of writing. And so I kind of want you to explain how storytelling can support the emotional and even physical aspect of healing beyond someone just laying back in the chair on Zoom talking to you to get
No, I absolutely love everything that you just said, and I'm glad that what I mentioned does really exactly back to your practice. Even with the recipe book that you mentioned before, it's something that anybody could benefit from, whether or not you have a condition. Just wanted to say that too. So yeah, I mean, writing is definitely a lifeline. I think if you have a chronic illness, and sure, talking about it just like on Zoom is a great resource too, but journaling is a whole other side of it. Journaling is kind of the first step to writing a book anyway. It gives you a safe space to process the emotional weight of living with that uncertainty about judgment from others. I've seen clients use writing to track their symptoms, discover patterns they didn't notice, what triggers your flares, what helps them feel better, what environments support their healing. So, even if you're documenting the small wins through writing, it really does help counter that internal narrative that you're not doing enough, or where you're making progress with. So yeah, I mean, it's really just powerful. Something powerful about writing letters. I had a really good idea that you can even write letters to your past or future self about difficult periods. I mean, that's a great way to track your progress, and it just gives you a different perspective on it. You can kind of look back at it. And then of course there's stream of consciousness writing. It just releases all that mental clutter, that anxiety, because when I was balancing my narcolepsy, I had all this why am I tired? What's wrong with me sort of thing. So by just writing it out, that releases that. And even just simple gratitude journaling could help to shift your focus from what's wrong to acknowledging what's actually working. So all of that combined, I think, is what we're going with here.
I like it. And I appreciate that, because it is important to write down your triggers, but as well as getting out the clutter. And I think that was for me, even if it's just clutter of all the things you have to do, or it could be the clutter of your feelings. I think it was the other week where I was feeling overwhelmed. It was like, oh, I need to get my content scheduled and pushed out. And I was just like, but I don't really feel like it. Like, I just don't really feel like pushing out or scheduling and batch scheduling the content. And I was like, okay, let's sit back, Jovonnie, because now you're feeling guilty that you haven't scheduled out all this content like you did when you were more balanced, like Danielle last month, getting it out there. And I was like, let's go facts versus feelings. And that's when I just journaled, this is how I'm feeling, and these are the facts, and I just kind of did that for at least like 5 different feelings of what was happening and identifying them with facts. And I felt better. It didn't make me go out there and schedule the content. Like, it didn't make me go and do something different, but being able to have that internal conversation with myself to better sit and be, that was releasing for me. Like, I was no longer like, oh, just, feeling bad, overwhelmed by not having all this scheduled content. It was more so, content is there. I show up, I'm putting out what I put out, and what's there for people is going to help the people that need it when they see it. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to all be done right now in order for it to still be valuable for somebody. And so I don't know if that resonates with anyone that's out there, but take your feelings and apply some time to address them with what's actually true. What are the facts based on the things that you're feeling? Because sometimes we can allow feelings to override what's really true, what's really working for you, what's really valuable, what's really making the most sense. So thank you, Danielle, for walking us through that writing and how it really does help, like, with your wellness. But have you ever seen someone like radically like shift their life after they publish their book and they become an author?
So radical improvement, yes and no. I would say it's more, I guess, gradual, right? When you have your book out there, it's a great way to share it with others and build that platform like we talked about, but it doesn't happen overnight. So it wouldn't necessarily be like, book's out there, I'm famous now, I'm making all this money and changing lives. It's a progression. So, I have a lot of authors who, for example, I have one who, he was a YouTube content creator. He wanted a book out there to kind of just promote himself. And, we did the whole process. We wrote his book. It's out there. And what do you know? Now he can use the book as a reference in his videos, and the book itself also references the YouTube channel. So it's just kind of cross promoting, I guess I would say. So lots of examples like that. And especially with when it comes to chronic illness, I think it's also a great way to express that too. I have one client who she's actually a cancer survivor. So by sharing her story, she just helped so many other people kind of navigate the legal system and finding the right treatments that might work. So I hope that kind of answers your question. It's different for everybody, is what I'm trying to get at.
No, it definitely did answer the question. And what I love most about it is I actually was going to ask you next, for someone who's like, could my story help others? Like, what does it look like to go from healing privately to actually starting healing people and helping them publicly? And so that actually led right into where I wanted us to go with that.
Yeah. So I actually host a podcast myself where I have authors on all the time, and they share their stories about their books. And one of my favorite questions to ask them, and the question that makes their faces just light up, is, okay, what has the feedback been like? And then, of course, they talk about how they're getting all these emails from people about how they've changed their lives based on what they're saying, and all the positive reviews saying, this helped me do this helped me do that. It's just it's kind of the cherry on top of the ice cream sundae, right? Just knowing that you're helping others, and it's that reward too. So it definitely helps.
So, and I'm no cherry on the ice cream analogy. I'm more of like a slight whipped cream on the ice cream.
Yeah.
More than the cherry. But I kind of wanted to ask you, what are people leaving on the table by not turning their story into a book, emotionally, creatively, and financially?
Yeah, well, emotionally, obviously, the more you're holding something in, the worse you're only hurting yourself. And by bottling up all these feelings and bottling up your experiences, what benefit is that? Financially, of course, even if your book doesn't make it big, you're still going to have that passive income every now and then. When somebody does buy it, the more you work at it, the bigger that financial benefit will be. And it's endless income that works while you sleep. You know, you could be in bed and people are still watching your videos, watching your TED Talk, reading your book, right? So it's all that, you know, underlying factor. And what was that third aspect you mentioned? You said emotionally, financially. You had one other component there,
It
but
was emotionally, financially, and I think it was creatively.
yeah, creatively. I mean, obviously by writing, the more you do it, the better you'll be at the writing skill. You know, you're working past any mistakes and constantly improving your writing. Working with editors too definitely helps. I've worked with so many clients who tell me, you know what, I never knew this about writing. You've helped me tremendously. So that's another benefit too. You don't know what talents you might have until you try, right? So
Agreed. And then you don't know where to take your strengths and how to partner them and collaborate with someone else or another entity to help elevate that experience to where the purpose and the value that you still have is still there. So there's someone listening right now thinking, I know I've lived through something powerful, but I actually don't know where to start. What is the first step you recommend for them, Danielle?
first step is to go to authorsonmission.com and schedule a consultation with our team. We'll chat with you, see where you are in, you know, whatever stage you might be. Maybe you just have an idea, or maybe you already have a whole manuscript laid out. You just need some help with editing and publishing. Maybe you already have a book out there and it's not getting the traction. You need some help with marketing and expanding the content. We have it all. So yeah, first step is to head on over.
Now, how do we even know we're at a place where we need to collaborate or reach out to a ghostwriter or storytelling collaborator?
Many different signs. One is, okay, when's the last time you opened up that Google Doc that you started writing back in January and it's still in paragraph 1 of chapter 1, right? So to ask yourself, how long is this realistically going to take me? Another is, okay, is this ready to go right on the market right now? Do I need a little guidance? I think everybody needs an extra pair of eyes on their writing. You might think it's great, but is it? So you might need it's always just great to run it by somebody. And yeah, I mean, just ask yourself, if I was reading this book, would I enjoy it? And so if the answer is not immediately like yes, then you need a little bit of help. And it doesn't necessarily mean your writing is bad. It just means you need a little bit of spice.
I got you. I love that. What are some things that people should be looking forward to when they're considering how to partner with this ghostwriter or the storytelling collaborator? What are those main things?
Yeah, definitely. So one thing that we do at Authors on Mission is we have a team of angel writers. We call them angel writers, not ghost writers. It's just a funner word. So you get to select the person that you work with because one, time schedules is a huge factor. Obviously, you need to make sure you can meet up and chat with each other, get to know each other, like we said, but also that you have similar visions, that you're on the same page with it. I have a lot of people who maybe I don't have the same experiences as them. We don't align quite well. Maybe I recommend them to a different ghostwriter who does have that experience. And industry knowledge is a huge thing too. For me, I've written about business books, healthcare books, books on AI, books on legal justice, and so it's like, you know, some people might have specific expertise in one area, but that's a benefit to your book if you know what you're talking about and you have the same jargon. So when I first started, I knew nothing, but I was able to do the research and kind of, you know, get on track with it. So kind of looking at all those different areas and find the person that's right for you.
I like that because I don't think we know enough about shopping for the best ghost writers or angel writers. You just think, oh, well, I need help, so I'm just going to go to this person. So being able to break down the fact that you're finding someone where the schedules align, because again, time is a big thing when you're balancing it, when you want to produce something really good. I think that's very important. But then also you talked about who has similar visions and views. Like if you're someone who goes totally against, you know, what someone else believes, it's harder for you to really bring that extra voice and that intentionality and the power of that story to life when you're not even vibing with it. Like I think that matters a lot to it. And then the industry knowledge, like, you know what is already working based on your level of expertise within that industry. What is selling? What is good tips when it comes to the marketing aspect of it all? So I think that was pretty cool to like even understand what you even should be looking for when you're considering those things. And you don't really get to do that a lot when it comes to AI. Like you don't know what AI is helping you with this aspect or that aspect, and you have to know the right prompts to feed it to get it to where it is that you need. And so there's so many different things to notice that this isn't your lane. Like your lane is owning your story and getting your story out. And so partnering with the right people and the right collaborators will help you be so much more successful than trying to do it yourself in your Google Doc and your drafts and thinking that one family member or a few friends has the level of expertise and knowledge to know that this is something that you can really get behind. And so I guess the next question would be like, what is something most people get wrong about actually publishing? Because, you know, some people are self-published, and what should they really understand and know instead?
Yeah, so self-publishing is a great tool, right? It's it's a way for everyone to get their messages out there. They don't have to go through the traditional methods, and there's pros and cons to both methods, right? But I guess what you need to know is just do your research, figure out what is best for your particular book and your goals. If you're just looking to establish some credibility in your field, you might not necessarily need a traditional publisher because you just want to have a book that you can hand out as a business card to your clients, say, you know what, this is my book, this is my theories, take it with you, learn a little bit more. You don't necessarily need all the marketing for that sort of thing. But if your goals are to, you know, transform it into a brand, then you may need a little bit of that extra push. So I guess that to answer your question, what you need to know is just get online and do your research and look up what needs to be done.
So someone who, let's say they're listening to this podcast, they're establishing a brand, is not even maybe all the way out there, or they're thinking, I saw this thumbnail, I clicked on it and it sounded absolutely amazing. I can take what I've been going through and actually put it in a book and make money out of it, but not necessarily that. But now my purpose is really profitable and could help other people while it's also helping me too. It's just kind of like, should I be a self-publishing person, or should I really be a little bit more intentional with this book? Should I do self-publish my first book and then be more intentional on the next book and actually get some help in regards to that? How do people navigate that part, Danielle, as somebody that's new and probably just now hearing this podcast and like, okay, well, which way should I go? How do I even start this thing? What's best for me? Should my brand be making money before I even get into this or not?
Yeah, so it's all situational. I would say I've had a lot of clients who have a book out, and you know what they say, let me just try traditional publishing. Let me, you know, submit it to a few different agencies and see where it goes. If not, I can fall back on self-publishing. That's always a great way to try. You know, shoot for the stars. If you don't if you don't make it, whatever that phrase is, that's one thing to keep in mind. Is just, you know, give it a try. But yeah, I mean, a great way to see if your manuscript is up to the task is by running it by a beta reader too. Someone who just reads it and says, okay, these are some pros and cons. Here's what you can work on. Not necessarily editing, but just to get that second opinion. And also just comparing it to other books that are like it, that are out there. For example, if your specific topic is getting a lot of buzz right now, then it's more likely that, okay, it could benefit from traditional publishing and it'll make a big splash, right? But if not so, then yeah, there's a lot of different factors, what I'm trying to say. So just keep your eye out.
I like that. And I think that's definitely something people could take and to do, like you said, more research and explore. Because I've heard some people say, oh, well, I wrote this book, but nobody picked it up, or they didn't want to put it out, or, you know, it was something totally different. And it was like, so I just wrote my own book and self-published it and put it out there. And then, like you said, take it with you to those different events. Let that be like a starter for you. And then maybe afterwards you write another book with someone else. So I really like the charge of empowerment to go and do the research to figure out which one is really up for the task for you. And then understanding it comes with a budget in mind, you know, and what that looks like to self-publish versus getting help. And like you said, what are your goals? What are your intentions with this book, with your brand? And how do you want this to be elevated? So I appreciate that, Danielle. So you're proof that people can write a new ending for their lives based on their healing journey or their wellness journey. What does writing your wellness story mean to you right now in this moment after everything that you've lived through and you've helped others through?
What does it mean to me? So I would have to say that it's therapeutic, like you mentioned before, right? It's important to just to get those ideas out there on the page. Um, I'd say you just have to, keep it simple, make it yours. And there's no one size fits all approach. Your wellness plan is a unique. You got to find your voice. Um, and what energizes me might drain you. So that's why it's just finding that right balance and what fits for you.
I like it. So those of us who are not authors yet, what are we, what should we be doing? Like, what is statistically saying about authors that really say authors on a mission is like, you need to be an author. You need to use your story for your power. What's the biggest takeaway you want people to get out of this that are not authors yet?
I'd say that if you want to get out there, you want to get your story told, there's only one way it's going to happen is if you take that first step. It's a little bit cliche to say, but it's so true. If you're sitting there on the couch or just listening to this podcast, you're saying, yeah, that sounds nice. Maybe one day I'll do that. Well, schedule it into your calendar, make a note for yourself. On tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, I'm going to go ahead and start drafting out ideas. You just got to take that first step. You got to hold yourself accountable for it and make it happen. There's no such thing as excuses when it comes to this sort of thing. You need to just do it.
All right. So the final two questions, we'll get into that. This has been an amazing conversation thus far. And if you have been vibing with us this far, make sure you're subscribed to the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast on YouTube. If you're vibing with us visually and seeing the video, and if you're listening on your favorite podcast distribution platform, make sure you follow and give the show a rating. So Danielle, I want you to speak to my specific target audience right now, who pelvic pain, period pain, all of those things are not normal. And that's a big part of the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast. But I want other people to be a part of the conversation, not just us knowing that in our bodies, this pain isn't normal. So what advice would you give to the girl dads, the male father figures, role models, the spouses and partners of people who are struggling with endometriosis, adenomyosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, fibroids, with the pelvic pain, the period pain, the heavy flows, the unexplained weight gain that they can't lose, or the unwanted facial hair? What would you say to those men, those guys, those partners about being a part of this life and being more so supportive to that special group of thrivers?
Well, I'd say you have to listen. We talked a lot about writing during this podcast and talking and getting your story out there, but the other side of it, especially if you're somebody who's just a supporting figure, is you have to listen and see where they're at. You don't know what somebody's experiencing until you hear their story. So, ask them the questions, what's your level at? Maybe even having like some sort of like a log, a way to say like, okay, I was feeling at a 10 level pain today, but tomorrow I might be feeling a number 5. So just really keeping track and knowing where they're at, and that way you can better meet them where they are, is what I would say. It's probably the best piece of advice.
So listening, number 1, and 2, meeting them where they are. I think that's powerful. And knowing that they still have a place to be supportive and not just, oh, this is a womanly thing, or this is just something that we can't even be a part of, when it's not at all. And it should be something that's naturally a part of conversations and willing to help. All right, last question, Danielle. If you could have a meal with any historical figure, who would it be and what would you all eat?
Oh my goodness, that is an excellent question. And I know it's definitely one that people should have prepared. Any historical figure?
Any.
Wow. I want to say, I think it'd be really fun to sit down with maybe some sort of like a rock star, right? Like, I know.
Rock star?
Yeah, I'd have to like pick somebody. I think someone like Michael Jackson could be really fun to just chat with and learn a little bit more about, like, his life too. Or maybe, I don't even know, like, who its lead singers of like those old like 80s bands, like kind of living that crazy lifestyle. I don't know. I think it could be kind of fun in comparing it to how things are now, right? I'd say that's probably my answer. I kind of put on the spot there, but I like it.
Okay, and what y'all eating with this old
Oh,
school rock
hmm.
star?
Well, being that this is the Empowered Plates podcast, I think we'd be trying to teach those rock stars, okay, maybe don't just eat that pizza, have something a little healthy. What they were eating back then probably wasn't what's scientifically proven to be the best thing now, the way things are always updating. So yeah, maybe I'll teach them a little bit about proper nutrition, right?
That's what you're gonna teach the rock star? That's
I
your
know
faith
it's like
in
we're
him?
gonna be just sipping on some beers and or something like
Okay.
that.
So y'all gonna turn
But
up on some beers and
yeah,
what
we're
you gonna
trying
eat?
to offer some guidance too. Who knows?
Beers, some guidance. Are y'all gonna eat anything at all?
Maybe some pizza. I don't know.
Okay, there we go. Beers
Simple.
and pizza, and talk a little bit about some guidance and how they could have possibly turned something in their life into a book to go along with their albums. I got you, Danielle. Okay. All right. So let the people know where they can find you, how they can connect with you.
Yeah, definitely. So everybody head to authorsonmission.com. There's no A, just Authors on Mission. You can also connect with us on social media. We're on Instagram, same at Authors on Mission. And yeah, I also have a podcast too. So if you're interested in learning more writing tips, you can head on over there too. So all great ways to stay connected.
All right, y'all. It's been another amazing episode of the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast. If you're looking for support, resources, check the show notes. And at this time, I am offering a free training called The HEAL Method, HEAL. Go ahead and click the link and register for the upcoming training. Y'all, it's been another amazing episode. Thanks for vibing with us, y'all.